Hey guys, this video is going to be an updated version of Cash for Noobs, as the previous video is just about 2 years old now, and well, CSGO as well as Cash have both changed quite a bit in those 2 years. So in this video, we'll cover callout locations, some of the basic spots that you might look for a player camping, as well as some basic strategies for both sides. So starting right off here, we are in T-spawn, and we can either go left towards B, we can go straight towards mid, or we can go right towards A. If we head straight here, this will lead into garage or big garage. These are spools, and this is red box. Heading over to the right, this is known as boost box or boost. And right here is A main stairs, which leads into A main. And then right here is lockers. And we come out into the A site to the right. This is known as boost box or shroud box. Over here is forklift. And right above forklift is known as catwalk, sometimes called heaven. Right here is squeaky, some people call it blue door, which leads into, well, this whole area is usually just called squeaky, but sometimes it is called long A. And back here is known as fence, or some people call it MBK. Right here is quad. This is A main plant, and this is default. This is red box. And right here is, a lot of people call it wood box or brown box if they're doing like retakes or whatever. This is toxic. And then again, up here is just catwalk. Right here is electric box, and then truck. If we come back towards mid here, this is known as highway or speedway. Spool. Headshot box or white box. And then just, whole area here is known as mid. Sandbags. Up in here is known as connector, CT connector, or Z. And then, under here is under boost, and again, boost. Vent is over here, and again, this just leads back into big garage. So if we hop up here into the vent, we'll be under vent, and this leads to checkers. Back checkers is right back here behind this box. And then we come back over here, this is B main, which leads to this area over here being B halls. That over there leads back into T-spawn, and then this just leads into big garage. Some people call this little area right here T connector. Now right here, these are also called toxic. Yes, there's one on each site, basically. So kind of keep in mind the context. If someone says, oh, they're in B halls, now there's one toxic, then obviously they're talking about this one, and then there's also the toxic over there on A site. This is known as sunroom. Some people call this playground just because of this little playground, but in general it's called sunroom, and very rarely I hear it called flashroom just because, well, that. So coming out of B main here, we come into the B site. This is under heaven. This little area right here where the blue is, I guess you could say. And up here is heaven. Right here is headshot. Generator. Ninja. Default boxes. Some people call these wood boxes or back boxes or just back site. And then just B site in general. And over here is tree or tree room, which again leads over here towards connector, and this area pretty much in general is called like CT, but right here is CT and CT spawn. And again over here is heaven. So that about covers it for the callout section of this video. Now we will hop into the basic camping spots. So starting right off here, we are in CT spawn, and very often you'll see either terrorists or counter terrorists just sort of saving their weapons in either these corners, over here, or behind the van. Very oftentimes a player will hold from connector here, or hide behind sandbags, or hold from white box or spool. If this is smoked off, expect a player to be either underneath boost or on the other side, sometimes even right over here. Sometimes a CT will be boosted into vents to hold from vents. A lot of times a terrorist will kind of sit right here, or even a CT will sit right here, waiting for terrorists to kind of rotate out. Or behind this box. Sometimes you'll see a player kind of holding right here, or behind there on the opposite side, and occasionally on this side. If we head back through B halls, these two corners right here are very common. And sometimes even behind here, or in this corner. A lot of times, people will save their weapons back here in T-spawn. Occasionally on top of this thing right here. If I can even get up there. There we go. Just sort of as an off angle. Behind this truck. On top of this box. On top of spools. Or on top of those wood pallets. Heading over towards A. Again, terrace will boost up to here. Sometimes a terrace will kind of hold here waiting for a flash push from a CT or something. Or they'll sit behind this box. Or up on top of these. Or on top of lockers. Heading into the A site, again, be careful of somebody getting boosted on top of Stroud box. Very common is terrace will hold here waiting for a rotates or a CT even. And CTs oftentimes hold from behind the forklift or up in this area on top of catwalk. Back here at MBK or at anywhere around quad. And sometimes holding from default, sort of spamming into squeaky. Oftentimes you'll see a terrace sitting here on retake situations. Or CT will be hiding behind toxic. This is an angle that sometimes happens if CTs try to kind of peek mid. They'll jump on top of here. And CTs hold from here very often. And heading back, you might expect a player behind these boxes or over these. Of course, ACT very often plays from in heaven. Sometimes they'll stand like back here to catch any rotates. These corners, or even back here. And again, oftentimes CTs will hold from headshot, generator, or anywhere on site here behind these boxes or these boxes. So that covers the basic sort of camping locations that you might expect a player, but now we'll hop into some strategies for the T side. So starting off here on the B side of things, there are a few different things that you can do. You can either just rush B no stop and hope that you can win the aim duels, especially useful with Tech 9s, or you can be a little bit more strategic about it and use some smoke. So you can either smoke off this cross right here, and then have players push into checkers, clear checkers, and then take the aim duels on site. Even have a player holding back here, throwing flashes in as your teammates kind of peek and take the aim duels. And to smoke off that cross is pretty simple. You just come back here, kind of where the skid mark in the floor is, aim at the second window and do a running throw. Once you reach this yellow line, you release your smoke, like so. They'll bounce there and smoke off the cross. And of course, be careful of people sort of throwing pot shots through the smoke. Sometimes it lands and there are gaps, like in this corner here, or in this corner here. So they may be able to see your toes. Just kind of be wary of that. That will allow you to come into checkers, clear checkers, and then take the aim duels on site to try and take site. You can also kind of throw flashes like this. Not the best flash, as again, they can see it coming from a mile away, but you might be able to catch them off guard with that flash if they're kind of not really focusing on that area. If they're holding like right here, kind of watching this for some reason, watching for smoke pushes, they might be blind, but again, not the greatest flash, but it is a flash that you can do. And again, you can have a player holding back here to throw flashes out like that. Or you can have them sort of stand back here and throw a molly. Now you want to kind of stand right here, aim up to about this point. Let's see if I can do it the first time. Like so, and they'll hit this area right here, and anybody holding in headshot will even be burned as well. So that is one approach you can do. You can also clear checkers, make sure nobody's holding in these corners. You can wallbang this. If they get hit, they might kind of peek out, or you might be able to see the blood splatter. Kind of clear these angles back here, maybe even throw a molly back behind the box there. Clear that. Make sure nobody's sitting back here. So again, you can wallbang here and here. And then once you're sure that those are clear, definitely have a teammate watching your back as you set up smokes. You can smoke off both tree and heaven. To smoke off tree, you just come into this corner, aim roughly right about here, and do a running throw. Like so. You don't have to run that far forward, exposing yourself. So, again, just like so. It'll bounce and lands in tree room. And to smoke off heaven, you stand in the same spot, aim like where the bricks are, up to the brown trim, and do a running throw. That should bounce and land in heaven like so. And that will allow you to take the site a little bit easier. And again, it is very wise to have players back here throwing flashes in so that you can more easily take the site. You can also throw a flash like this, and again, not the greatest flash, but it might make them turn away. if you peek with it, you know, you can throw it like this. They'll see it, they'll turn away, and then you can get that advantage as well. So those are a couple of different ways you can take B site, at least from B main. You can also do it from mid. And speaking of middle, there are a few different things you can do. You can either smoke off connector and do mid to B through the vents, or mid to A. Or you can do a wall of smoke here and do a vent dive sort of situation towards B. And to smoke off connector is pretty simple. You just line yourself up with this third line here. So 1, 2, 3. Aim up the middle wood panel until you reach the height of this. And you want to do a running jump throw. Once you reach the end of this line, jump throw. Like so. And that should smoke off connector. And as you can see, oh, warp through the wall there. Covers connector very well. And again, that's if you want to do a mid to A. So connector is smoked, and then you can flash into mid by simply throwing a flash off there. And take care of white box or anybody holding close. Check sandbags and just do a mid take like that. You can also, again, smoke off the little wall of smoke there in front of white box and connector. And to do that, to smoke off the right side, you want to come on to this side, aim roughly here, and to smoke off the left side, do the opposite. And again, once those are there, just throw a flash off of here, pop flash in, and then check your corners. You can even sometimes have like a little gap right here and then rush through, take care of that and that. Or you can just do a straight up vent dive, jump up here, clear connector, and clear headshot, like so, and go to either site. So that is a couple things you can do to take mid. In addition to having connector smoked off, you can also have a couple players come through mid door and then have 1 or 2 players boost up here to kind of set up a little bit of a crossfire and take mid that way. So on the A side of things, there are a few different approaches you can take. You can do a mid to A as we discussed earlier, or you can do a split, some mid, some A main, or some A main, some squeaky. So first and foremost, you want to make sure no CTs are going to be peeking you with an op, because if they get a good spawn, oftentimes they'll flash in and then kind of crouch peek you with an op and get a quick pick. So make sure that they're not going to do that. Just kind of hold back for a couple seconds, and then oftentimes this will be smoked off, and a CT will throw a smoke off this wall right here and then peek with it, and either peek behind the smoke like this and try and take you out, or just jump up here and then up here to try and get a pick on you holding from here. Very common, so if you see that smoke, it might even be wise to just kind of spam these 2 spots, make sure nobody's trying to get cheeky with you. So now that you are sure you have control of A main and that smoke has dissipated, you want to make sure that you're clearing MBK and quad. And if you have some mollies, you can either throw them at MBK or quad, or both if you have more than one teammate with mollies, and then take out anybody playing there. So now that those areas are clear, you want to make sure that you smoke off this cross right here so that nobody can kind of take you down from truck, and once you push into sight, they can't take you down from toxic without just sort of throwing some pot shots. Just smoke off that cross is very simple. Just simply throw a smoke off the white box like that and push in. That was not the greatest because there's a small gap right there, but you get the idea. And it's very, very, very wise to have at least one player pushing through squeaky so that they can kind of take down anybody playing up here in the forklift area or on cat, so that you don't necessarily have to waste as many flashes pushing in. You know, you can kind of throw flashes off like this, or throw one like here, and aim right here, hold left and right click, and throw like so. Those are not pop flashes because they can definitely turn away, but again, I would advise having at least 1 or 2 players pushing squeaky to deal with these players holding here. So once that is crossed, you can push into the site with some smokes and flashes. And this guy in squeaky, he can kind of do a little bit of a flash like this, just hold left and right click, aim at the top of this arrow, and throw like that, and that'll pop right there. It doesn't give anybody playing like back here that much time to turn away, but keep in mind that they do have time to turn away, and it's not a pop flash, so just keep that in mind. But again, flashes aren't necessarily meant to full blind people. They're sometimes used to make them turn away so that you can get the pick on them as they're not really paying attention. So keep that in mind. So you can push a couple through squeaky and a couple through A main, or 3 through A main rather, and take the site like so. And that is pretty much the default, most basic strategy. So now onto the CT side of things. The typical setup is 2 on the A site, 1 in mid, and 2 on the B site. Now, if this mid player is sort of struggling to hold mid, sometimes you'll see one of the A players sort of rotate and help from highway and white box, and then this player will play from connector. And that makes it so that this player white box can easily help out the player on A so they hit the A site quickly. So as a mid player, first and foremost, what you want to do is smoke off the door here. And to do that, you simply want to come into connector, aim at this white box here, or not white box, but this white part of the floor, and just do a running throw, and that'll smoke off that. And if you can afford it, you want to sort of either nade or throw a molly on top of the boost spot there. So throw your smoke like that, come into this corner here, aim right at this little line, I guess you could say, and do a jump throw, and that'll land right there and boost. And you can do it fairly quickly once you have it sort of practiced and down pat. So again, throw your smoke, jump over, bind your molly, throw it, and do a jump throw like that, and I'll smoke off like so that they can't kind of boost up immediately. They can still boost up, but again, that's just going to delay them a little bit so you can get a better position. Now, oftentimes you'll see a player holding with an op from like right here. I personally don't like to do that, simply because you kind of have to peek wide like this to kind of check heaven, or excuse me, boost. So I typically don't like to do that unless I have a player holding right there, watching boost. So once that's smoked off, I like to typically come over here and kind of hold from white box. That way I can kind of peek here, and I can come back. Oops, I can kind of peek over here. Kind of peek right here and be close to cover rather than having to peek wide. So that's one way you can hold it, or you can just kind of smoke that off and have... Whoop, didn't want an MP7, whatever. Smoke that off, molly that off, and have the player holding white box as you push up and hold from right over here or on the other side. You can also have a player from B get boosted up into here to help you out in mid. So those are a couple things you can do to hold mid and to hold the A site. Let me just get myself some money here. And to hold the A site, first and foremost, what you want to do is smoke off A main, because typically the terrorists will kind of get there kind of quick, and a lot of times they'll just sort of rush right out. So to smoke off A main effectively, come up to this headlight right here, aim roughly right about here in this little corner, and then just throw your smoke like that. And they'll land nice and deep. There's not really too many gaps in it, so they can't really boost over and see. And they'll give you some time to get some more forward positions. Now, if you're holding from default, you can kind of keep an eye on squeaky, and then sometimes a player will be holding from forklift, or you can hold from quad either back here or back here. But again, you're very easily mollied, and you can be taken out because, well, if it's molly back here, you kind of have to hold from here or push out and hope that they don't pick you as you're pushing out. So you can hold from quad. I like to hold from quad because you can kind of throw a flash like that as you're pushing out and blind them. Especially if they're peeking through squeaky, you can kind of hold from default right here. Throw a flash off of that, and that'll flash anybody pushing in from A main and from squeaky. And the nice thing about being able to hold from default is you can spam through here and then change your position to be a little bit more, well, I guess a little bit more different, so to speak. So you can have players either holding from quad or there, supporting each other, or you can have a player holding from highway, watching squeaky while you're watching A main from quad, or somebody holding here, watching A main while you're holding from pretty much anywhere, watching squeaky. Now, I mentioned having a player holding from white box while a player holds in connector. And this player, if they don't really see anything mid and someone says, hey, I hear footsteps in A main, this player will easily be able to rotate either here or maybe even come up here and hold at this angle to try and kind of help out the player on A. Now, something that is a little bit kind of screwy with the game is that you can kind of throw a molly right here, and that will hit people through the door. I'm stuck in the ground. So the molly will go underneath the door and hit people there. So you can kind of throw a molly like that. And if they're holding close to the door, you can hear that sort of, well, burning sound, I guess you can say. The sound, the hit sound. And you can get some information that players are holding here. So that is also something that you can do. But again, make sure first and foremost you smoke that off. Now, sometimes you'll see players boost up here it's kind of a risky thing to do because, yeah, this is going to be smoked off, like so, but they're going to be able to hear you kind of jumping up here, so keep that in mind if you do decide to boost up here. So that's kind of the basics of holding A site as a CT. So holding B as a CT, there's a few different approaches you can take. First and foremost, if I'm pushing onto the B site as a CT, I like to throw a smoke that covers like this little cross over here. And sometimes it can be a little bit finicky, but I find the easiest way to do it is kind of line up yourself up with here, aim right here, and do a running throw. That should bounce like so and cover the cross like that. But keep in mind, the problem with it is that they can definitely just kind of jump over here like this. But it'll at least kind of cover you as you kind of cross into the site or cross into checkers here. So speaking of checkers, I never noticed that graffiti before. Anyway, sorry. So once that's smoked off, you can kind of hold from checkers here. Kind of jiggle peek, make sure nobody's opping from there, and hold from here. And if you do see somebody, you can kind of throw a flash like this. Not like that, oh god. Throw a flash like this into here and peek with it and try and get a pick. And then if you're holding from checkers, you can have a teammate holding your cross from headshot, so that if you do get into trouble, they can throw a flash. This guy can crouch once it pops, come back up, and kind of help you out like that. So you can have one player in checkers and one player here, or you can have a player on headshot and one player kind of holding on site proper, either behind here or over here, or have both players holding from site, one back here and one here. Now, sometimes you'll see an opper holding from, let's see here, from either tree or heaven. Typically, I don't like to have either myself or somebody else holding from here because these are very easily smokable, and if you're smoked off like this with an op, not really much you can do. However, if you're holding from tree with an op and you get smoked off, you can come up here like this and try and see over the smoke. You can see a little bit as a terrorist push in and try and get a pick as they push in. That is one small thing you can do if you get smoked out from heaven or tree or both. So those are some of the basic setups you can do as a CT. You can also, if you're like on an eco round, have this smoked off, and then let's say you have, I don't know, an MP7. You can have somebody hold from here. Sometimes the terrorists will push through like this area right here, and you can kind of catch them off guard if you're on anti-eco or just straight up eco with like a 5.7 or, well, a 5.7 or a P250 or something. So if you have a MP7, SMG, or pistol, you kind of want to be close. If you know that they're kind of maybe either eco or on a force buy, you can try that and take them down like so. Now, another sort of ballsy thing you can do if this is smoked off, have someone push up right here, play close, and that way you can listen, get information, and make sure they don't boost over here and take you down. And then kind of either throw a flash like this, have it bounce off the box like that, and then peek out with it and try to get a pick. The problem with this is you're kind of stuck if you're not able to get a pick, or if that's not smoked off, you don't have a flash, don't have a teammate backing you up. You're kind of stuck, and you're pretty much only here to get 1 or 2 kills or information. So those are some basic things that you can do on the CT side. And as always, thank you all very much for watching, and see you next time.